What's going on, everyone? You're watching Ash on Comics. My name is Ash, and here is today's comic. Powers of X, issue 5 of 6. This is actually part 10 in a 12-part saga, and yeah, we're going to talk about it. This is my new format for doing videos, if you've been watching Ash on Comics for a little while. I'm kind of fond of the point and shoot, do your camera, the Our Boy Zach style video, just point your camera at a comic book. I do an iPad. Some people are like, why are you just doing an iPad? Like, you're going to do it digital. And I was like, well, I mean, I like the point and shoot. I just prefer to read comics on an iPad than the paper. Plus, shooting the iPad is better than shooting paper, which, you know, especially if it's Marvel comics. So DC switched to the matte paper, but Marvel still has the gloss, and it's just kind of a pain. And then people are like, let's just do digital then. And I was like, I don't want to do the digital thing. But then my phone started crapping out as far as the camera goes. It kept crashing and being annoying. So I was like, well, I'm going to do it on iPad and see how it works. And, you know, for the most part, I enjoy it. But there's some downsides. Number one, no Stan the Man, no Forky. Where'd he go? They're not here. You'll still see them every Wednesday on Ash Wednesdays. It's not as personable, I don't think. You're seeing screenshots. You hear my voice, I guess, if you care about my voice. But yeah, so there's that. And this is the part that I never really liked was that I like, you know, pointing the camera. It feels like you're interacting with me. I don't know. Your miles may vary. Some people like the cleaner look. I like the more amateur, sort of like basement dweller, you know, they've done it out of your garage kind of look, the way Zach did. I love his old car videos. There was a certain charm to that aesthetic. But let's get on with the book. Now, if you've been following me, I've reviewed every single one of these books, House and Powers. I consider them one text. By the way, now that I'm thinking about this, I went on Twitter and I didn't get much feedback on this. A couple people chimed in, and I thank you. I am looking to go back and read some of the Jonathan Hickman Marvel run. I've discovered Hickman. Shout out to our boy Jimmy over at Comics Quirks. Jimmy, you were right. Hickman is badass. He's awesome. You're still wrong about Bendis, but you were right about Hickman, and I'm giving you credit where credit's due. So I want to go back and read the Hickman run. Plus, some people have alluded to the fact that some of the things that are happening here have had seeds planted in his previous runs. Like if you look at all of Hickman's run at Marvel, it's like one gigantic kind of conceptual story. I don't want to read everything Hickman, at least not yet. I want to read the key stuff. Everyone's like, oh, get Fantastic Four. Okay, I got that. So if I start at Fantastic Four, you guys, someone out there that knows, if they're, oh, I'm a big Hickman guy, no, give me a reading list, right? Tell me the order. You'll go Fantastic Four to this, and then to FF, and then back to Fantastic Four, and then to Avenger, you know, whatever that may be. Because I look at the trades, and they're on super deal right now. I only have a couple of days to do this on Comixology. So, yeah, I need that. I also need to make this a quick video. So if you can do that, throw it down in the comments. You can DM me on Twitter, or whatever, reach out. I would love some help on that. They will think we are doing one thing, but the truth is we are doing something altogether different. Professor X. Here's the obligatory 2-page credits. This annoys me, but I can't stop pointing it out. And then we open up here. X-Zero, the X-Men, Year 1, Dallas, Texas. My question is, can it be done? You know what they say, Professor. There's nothing that can't be done. The real question is one of feasibility. For example, what if the energy cost of the improvements you want means we'd need to access a fusion reactor? Would that really be a workable solution? Let's say it would be, hypothetically. Well, now we're talking. You're on your what, 3rd generation of Cerebro? 4th. Counting the initial prototype, but only that first one was solely my design forge. Most of the improvements regarding range and sensitivity have been Henry McCoy's doing. And now you want to use the current functionality of Cerebro, the ability to locate any mutant on the planet, to also copy that mutant's mind to make a backup of a sentient being. Yes, that is correct. But in my gentle broaching of the subject with Henry, he was rather emphatic that it cannot be done. Beast is certainly smart, but this kind of machine building is, well, a bit beyond the good doctor's expertise. As I see it, you have two problems. Volume. There are a lot of mutant minds out there, Charles, and that number is growing every year. Then there's redundancy. In the micro, you're talking about a database of all the mutant minds that it's going to have to account for updated versions of each mind. For example, the difference between who you were last year and who you are this year. And in the macro, you're going to need to duplicate versions of the entire system because you can't afford to ever lose the data. So you need at least to keep one backup. I'd prefer 5. All right. You're probably wondering, are you going to read this whole comic to me? No, I'm not. I like to read the beginning of a comic because the opening of a comic is a crucial factor, right? You've got 20 to 22 pages typically to tell a story and engage the reader. In a novel, sometimes you have 100 pages to work with to set things up and get things going. I know that's what I've always been told, is give a novel 100 pages to hook you, but a comic doesn't have that luxury. It generally has got to get you in the first 2 pages. If it doesn't, you sort of mind tunes out, you start getting a bad attitude, and even if you finish the comic, sometimes you're just not in the right mindset. And I can talk all day about how much this comic made me feel, but I want to give you an example for those of you who haven't read it and just want to be spoiled by comics on YouTube, I guess. I don't know. Just kind of the setup. And then talking about the comic. First of all, I love that Forge is being introduced. We kind of knew this was coming. It was hinted at in the white papers when there's the Skunk Works project. Well, lo and behold, the Super Cerebro thing that Charles is using is a Forge design. Brilliant. Jonathan Hickman is writing a fan's wet dream of X-Men, essentially. I feel like Jonathan is a massive X fan himself and has grown up. He loved X-Men, and he's kind of like the rest of us who are just like, no one's ever doing this right. Oh, just, face palming. And finally, he's got the keys to the car, and he's just putting the pedal to the metal and doing all these crazy things. I love that he gets these characters. I love that he uses them in important ways. Forge has never really been used correctly, in my opinion. And I've always thought he was kind of I hate to use this term, but a problematic character. Not in the stupid social justice sense, but problematic and from a storytelling sense. His power is it's too easy to be misused as Deus Ex Machina. It's like, oh, we need a special super machine that no one could ever invent. Good thing we've got this guy over here who can invent anything with his mutant power. You're like, oh, but this use keeps Forge in the lore for us X fans that are like, well, he's a character, he matters, but he doesn't have to be on the front line. He doesn't have to be out there solving all the problems. What he's doing is he's an integral part of the plot and the mythology of why things are what they are. So Forge is talked into building the Cerebro, and we get this white page here on the left that talks about the Cerebro and the Krakoan tech that Forge has mastered. Interesting thing to point out here is this note. As previously stated, while there have been no experimentation regarding what happens when you combine a mutant mind with a husk that is not their own, it is believed that unless a mutant has some primary or secondary blah, blah, blah. So this is the second time Hickman's mentioned this note, which tells me this is an important thing to know. Maybe not this instant, but you need to file it away in the back of your mind because this will be irrelevant. Then he also notes it's possible for a telepathic operator to replace their own mind with the previous legacy version, but doing so is incredibly difficult and would require a skilled, experienced operator. Note, Charles Xavier has done this twice. I also think that's extremely relevant. So we go back here, or to the future, or the next stage, X1, year 10 at the Louvre. Everyone out! So Emma Frost sends a mental thing to send everyone away, and she's sensed that Charles has been following her, and so she chose this place to meet him. But she didn't know that Magneto, because he's got the cool helmet, spot on to you, Hickman, for paying attention to the details. And then here's a cool thing. He doesn't say this. I know this because I'm an X-Men fan. I know, hey, she noticed that Charles was following her. She could kind of sense his psychic whatever. And then, but why, Magneto steps out of the shadows and she's kind of just like, oh, I didn't know you were there. If you didn't know anything about these characters, you might be, why wouldn't she know? Like, if he doesn't spell it out for you. I love that. I love that about Hickman. They approach her, and essentially they ask, like, they need to distribute these drugs that they talked about in the first issue, that they're leveraging against humanity. And they basically want the Hellfire Club to be, as they point out in the book, the East India Trading Company for Krakoa, to distribute all of these drugs and maintain their sovereignty and all this stuff. And the Hellfire Club's already got this world network set up. It's all ready to go. The catch is Emma's got to bring back Sebastian Shaw, and she's like, "What? I just got rid of him." Interesting point that I want to note here is when she is first seeing them, she says, "So it's the two of you together. This is either going to be incredibly heroic or terrifyingly reckless. Dare I ask which?" And when they explain her plan, she says, "So, not heroic at all, just reckless." I've gotten into some arguments online, and some people have taken really negatively to my reaction and some of my peers' reactions about this book, that the X-Men are not behaving like heroes. It should be pointed out here that even notorious villain White Queen of the Hellfire Club is saying, you guys aren't acting heroic. So I think this is another piece of evidence of Hickman as a writer reaffirming, and kind of calibrating the reader to have the appropriate understanding of what the message is, that these X-Men are not heroic. And if you're reading that, you're getting little anchors and things that clue you in to say, yep, you're not misreading this. This is the way I'm trying to communicate. But again, he's not forcing you. He's not just telling you outright that. So you can still walk away with your own interpretation. They have some arguments here. And of course, they do the whole thing. Let us show you. Later at Krakoa, she says, "One more time then, for the children. All right, I'm in. Tell me what you need." And that's when they really explain the deal about the East India Company. I kind of jumped ahead of myself. And then they say, get Sebastian Shaw in. And they negotiate 2 seats on the governmental council. And she renegotiates, is like, I'll need 3. And we don't know why. I'm presuming it's going to be for the Black Queen, Selena, because we've kind of seen her in the promos. So here we get the white pages, the Quiet Council of Krakoa. This will be the governing body. And we see Professor X and Magneto are part of the Autumn section. There's a redacted elements. We don't know who other people are. And we see Sebastian and Emma. I'm going to guess this next person here after Emma is going to be the Black Queen. And then we get this little diagram on the right. Presumably, oh, look, it's a round table. How quaint. X-Men year 10, the summoning. And this is where Charles reaches out to all mutant kind to say, come join us in our place. And then this is what I thought was really cool. I like that there were some little parts here like Omega Red. That's kind of a cool little throwback there. And I believe this is Sunfire. I believe. I could be wrong. He doesn't look exactly like him. But Japanese, if I'm right, that's really cool. If I'm wrong, please, someone in the chat or whatever, correct me. And then here. So let me see if I understand you clearly. You're inviting all the mutants on this planet to live together on this perfect little island. The good, the evil, and those beyond such quaint descriptors. I love Hickman's depiction of Namor here. Oh, and the art of of Atlantis. Look at this. It is so awesome. The colors, the composition. Look at how he depicts Namor. It's gorgeous. Fantastic. And I love that Namor is so arrogant. And he talks about his superiority. And he says, it's good that you finally figured all this out, but let me ask, do I strike you as someone who just now realized I'm much better than everyone else? And do you actually think that I believe that you feel that way too? And he tells Charles, go away, little man, and don't come back until you really mean it. And I was like, oh, damn. And because I'm short on time, I can't read the Stan soapbox, but it's right here. And you can pause the video. This is a really good one. Talks about love and hate and everything. And Stan, you're missed, man. You're greatly missed. X3, X-Men, the year 1000, and we see the Phalanx. And remember, they had just been, talking about getting the ascendancy, and they're waiting for the answer. And it says, I understand you have an answer then. Answer we, Phalanx, have. Whatever pleases you, pleases we. We would hear your answer. And then this being materializes in like a humanoid form. These are our Phalanx terms. And we see the librarian, who some people are suspecting this is Charles. They've never identified him by name, as far as I'm aware. And he kind of has a look of Charles, but really old. I don't know if that's possible, but I guess if you're able to reclone yourself over and over and over, right? You could live thousands of years, potentially. Excuse the coughing in the mic there. And then the construct, I'll just call it the construct, kisses the librarian on the forehead, and you see his eyes light up, and he's like, "Aye, by them we Phalanx accept," and just disintegrates the librarian. And then later, this is where we sort of get this storyline explanation, which I'm not going to go all into, but we see, I guess, the new librarian interacting with Nimrod the Greater, and basically this is all narration, dialogue, everything for the purpose of my alarm. Get back. I got to end this video real soon. I got somewhere to go. So this is all for the purpose of the viewer to try to understand things. And it's really kind of complex. But to sum it up, this is like Matrix Reloaded level, like blow your mind, philosophical understanding of reality type stuff that I love. I love when you mix science and religion. I'm a religious person myself. I guess you would say I believe in God. It'd be better accurate. And I don't know. I don't really like when fiction tries to write biblical, like try to recreate actual Christian belief into fictional stories, because you do a disservice, I think. But I'm okay with fantasy religions and fictitious just ideas in general that have a hard time explaining it, and that I don't want to go down this rabbit hole. But I love things like The Matrix, which really delved into religious philosophy, especially in the second and third films, which a lot of people kind of tuned out. This book does some similar things here, and they talk about that when a conscious and civilization gets so big that they form like these giant machine brains. They talked about like the planet-sized brain worlds and things like that. Imagine these things getting so massive and so dense that they collapse in on themselves and create singularities, which aka a black hole. And so then they're just like, oh, so the black holes are, she says right here, I know this part of Titan theory. It states that there's a heart of every black hole in the universe. There's actually a supermassive machine brain, each one containing the collective intelligence of a society so advanced that it collapsed in on itself. And you're like, oh, that's, wow. But Hickman doesn't stop there. At first, I was like, that's really freaking cool. Like, I want to, this is mythology you're building. I'm like, Yes. Then on the next page, it goes, no. It goes beyond that. We now know there's black holes like all throughout the universe. And black holes are wormholes. And these aren't just bridges, they're actually connective tissue. And I'm paraphrasing this. Hickman explains it all better. I'm just trying to sum it up. And imagine, and my brain is going wild when I'm reading this description. And it gets to a point, where is it? Yes, here. You have to consider that it's very possible for each black hole isn't a separate machine, that it's all one single machine that stretches its tendrils across the entirety of the known universe. And at that point, I was like, oh God. Like, essentially this is like God, like the universe is God and we're inside. And then it goes to the next step. One giant societal intelligence so far beyond us that it might as well be that God mankind spent so much time looking for. And I was just like, damn, Hickman he just blew my mind. This is great imaginative, speculative fiction, philosophical sci-fi. Like I said, like the Wachowskis were so great at. And she explains, well, why did you kill the librarian? Because she explains that you humans, we were trying to essentially wake a galactic suitor that would, be a protector, but instead you attracted a predator, and a hungry one at that. So essentially the phalanx are like, yep, we're going to accept you, but they're only accepting the consciousness, and they're absorbing in their own, and then they're going to eat the planet and physical matter that's left behind. And so it's essentially wiping everyone out. And that's the end. And we get a last white page here with types of societies. And this is a carryover from before. We have SI 10 million now, SI 100 million, and SI undefined. And it talks about the Titan theory as you saw in the book, but now it expands on that. And I'll let you read all at your own. When you see me again, understand what that means. Namor. And here we are. 2 more books left. At the end, we get the top here. It says, next, I am not ashamed of what I am. And then on the right, then House of X. So presumably the next issue and then the issue after that. That's kind of what it's been. And that has been Powers of X number 5 out of 6. And I absolutely love this issue, as I have been since the 3rd issue of the series. The first 2 were a little bit like, what the heck is going on? I wasn't quite sure. I didn't like how the X-Men were behaving all bizarro. But now I don't care, right? I'm on board for this story. I'm treating House and Powers of X as one 12-issue, self-contained story. If the X-Men are heroes or if they're villains, it almost doesn't matter to me, because I'm kind of just taking this as a contained, almost, it's not an Elseworld story. I know it's continuity, but in my headcanon, I can almost make it that way. I am worried about what the ongoing series with X-Men and Excalibur and all this stuff. I'm really worried where that's going to go, but I don't care for this. Or I don't care about that for this. This is a great story. Hickman is weaving a fantastic sci-fi tale using the mythology of the X-Men. It's not important at this point how heroic the X-Men are. This is a plot that is kind of dependent on, not dependent on X-Men being heroes per se. It's really about establishing the universe and the world that the X-Men live in and what they're going to be going forward. And I love that how Hickman is just putting these building blocks together. It's fascinating. He's got a mystery. I'm hooked. I just want to talk about this book with other fans all the time. And that is what I miss so much about comics. And that's something I used to have with X-Men. And I'm sold. This is a fantastic issue. I have communicated some of my concerns multiple times in other videos. I don't want to beat that horse to death. I think they are valid, but I also just want to be able to enjoy the ride, and I am. And I'm trusting in the author. I think that's what we all should do. That's what I did with, sadly, with Brian Michael Bendis with Man of Steel. I gave him all the trust until he abused it on the final issue, and then I gave my final thoughts on it. And I'll give my final thoughts on this when it's all wrapped up as well. But as of right now, I'm not going to criticize something for something it hasn't done. And what it hasn't done is let me down. It hasn't. I'm worried it will, but that's not a fault of Hickman or the story. So fantastic. I'm not sure so much why Sinister's on the cover here. Maybe I'm missing some subtleties of the book. If you know something that I missed, please clue me in. I am absolutely not an authority. I'm absolutely not Jonathan Hickman and know all the answers. Many of you guys will see things that I don't, and that's part of what makes this great, is that we can talk to each other, fill in the missing pieces of the puzzle that we missed, and hopefully you're enjoying this as much as I am. Absolutely through the moon. Thank you so much for watching. Appreciate you listening to me blather about comics. Listen to me give my opinions that don't carry any more weight than yours or anyone else's, except Jonathan's, I guess. Jonathan's matters, and Stan's, I think, would matter too. But that's it. I appreciate every view that I get. I don't have many. I'm not monetized, so if you want to support the channel, I'd really appreciate it. You can throw a sub, throw a like, throw a share out there. If you know anyone that you might enjoy what's I'm putting out there, spread the word. I appreciate it, and I will see you next time. Thank you so much for watching.